Unlike the majority of wine areas in the world, the Hunter Valley can be badly affected by drought. Most of the vineyards are kilometres away from the river, relying heavily on dam supplies.
We have been informed by the federal government that there is water available in the Hunter. This is the only region in New South Wales where there will be an excess amount of water.
That would come from Glenbourne and Glennies Creek dams. A $30,000 feasibility study is planned to explore the possibilities. Piping water in could cost up to $16 million. But for a $200 million industry, a guaranteed water supply would be well worth it.
It will put us in a much more competitive situation, help us in the export market and generally make the wine industry a little bit more at ease.
Still on wine, and a PhD student at Newcastle University is getting his hands dirty in Pecolban soils. Winemakers have always known different types of grapes grow best in certain soils based on trial and error plantings. Andrew Rawson is pinpointing the exact link.
But what I'm trying to do is put numbers to those anecdotes. I'm trying to determine some sort of scientific basis to that knowledge.
Andrew has received an $18,000 grant through the Vineyards Association to carry out the work. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Promoter Bill Mordy has flown in Arisal Nukumendi from Mexico City to complete the international lineup to contest the inaugural Lance Hobson Memorial Trophy. Ranked in the WBC Top 20, Nukumendi speaks only Spanish. Still, he exudes confidence about his impending clash with November Nshingala, the former South African currently number 6 in the world in the IBF featherweight rankings.
I don't know anything about November. I know that November is a month of the year and that after November is December. I'm just here to win.
Despite the jet lag, Nukumendi hit the gym this afternoon. Standing 166 centimetres tall and weighing 58 kilograms, the 23-year-old says he needs little preparation. He boasts 25 wins from a 30-bout career, 18 of them knockouts, and is ready to win again next week.
He feels very excited to be here and to be able to fight with number 6, and that he feels very motivated for this fight.
November Nshingala is due to arrive in Newcastle tomorrow. Both internationals expected to put in plenty of gym work ahead of their clash at the Newcastle Basketball Stadium on Monday night. Benny Pepper is an emerging NBL star, a 205 centimetre tall player the kids naturally look up to. Benny and the other Falcons are spending a lot of their time these days working with school students. It's an NBL coaching program called Hoopsters, which turns star players into teachers with rewards all round.
We've got a few rookies this year and they haven't had anything to do with the kids before, trying to teach them how to play basketball. It's a lot of fun for them, they get a lot out of it, people skills, things like that. But also, it's also very satisfying to see kids have a lot of fun, and that's what...
Energy Australia is now backing the program in the Hunter. In its first 10 months, Hoopsters brought coaching sessions to around 150 local schools. The new sponsorship deal should see a lot more students put through their paces by the Stars. And it's not just a sports program. While the kids can work on their coordination on the court, additional Hoopster activities use the basketball theme for English, maths and other classroom studies as well. The Chief is off the paddock and on the box in a new television campaign to convince parents to make their homes a safer place.
Because some of the things we take for granted are major hazards to kids.
The Home Safe campaign identifies the risks that often go unnoticed until it's too late. Health figures show injury is the leading cause of death and disability for children under 5. Falls, burns and poisoning, the big dangers. Hunter Health and the NIB have joined forces in the campaign, concerned that children are being admitted to hospital every day with injuries that could have been prevented.
Our major objective is to heighten the awareness of parents and people who care for children 0 to 5 about this problem, and to give them some practical ideas of what they can do to reduce the risk of injury.
Media advertising will promote the Home Safe campaign. A specially priced Kids Safe Homes booklet will also help, giving parents the chance to check just how safe their homes really are for trusting children. Ian Cameron, NBN News.
Tomorrow night is the Falcons' chance to get square after a frustrating 2-point loss to Hobart last Friday night. It was the one that got away. The Falcons missed 17 free throws, giving the fans heart attacks. Coach Tom Wiseman, however, wouldn't admit to any match stress.
I don't mind close ball games. I don't mind the challenge that the Mitsubishi Challenge gives us. It is a tough league, and every game that we play, we're going to be tested in. And
Marty McLean and Ben Pepper have passed injury tests for the Hobart clash. The pressure is mounting on skipper Butch Hayes. Without the established stars from last year, he now has to make the front running.
Last year I could rely on Tony and MJ to start us off, get us going, and then I kind of pick up the pace after that.
Meanwhile, the Falcons have signed on a new sponsor, a $50,000 plus deal with the Bartercard Group. It's a welcomed addition for the club in the fight for the corporate dollar. Peter Ryan, NBN News. This 20-year-old vessel, HMAS Manura, looked sad and tired today, towed from Sydney to Newcastle, ready for a complete overhaul. It was decided it was quicker to tow the former US Navy ship rather than make her engine seaworthy. Even so, it was a 10-hour trip. As she edged into Newcastle Harbour, it signalled a new wave of jobs for the region. The $55 million contract will create 500 positions over 18 months. Forjack's dockyard will convert the ship into a training and helicopter support ship. Another vessel, the HMAS Canimbla, a part of the same contract, will arrive next month. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Engineering Masters student Robert White has spent the past 4 years trying to find the correct way to construct a house so it will withstand anything from an earthquake to mine subsidence. This cottage is the result of all that hard work. It's made out of masonry but can still be jacked 100 millimetres off its foundations without falling apart.
We believe by designing a system that can withstand the movements that the house will be subjected to in a mine subsiding event, then we can overcome that problem.
Robert's design means vast tracts of land previously deemed unsafe by councils because of mine subsidence can now be opened up because buildings will be able to withstand their weaknesses.
We've designed a house that is capable of moving when a mine subsidence event occurs and not sustaining any damage.
The specially designed house has been built and tested by staff and students from the university's engineering and surveying departments.
There's nothing like seeing engineering in practice, and when they see a house lifted 120, 150 millimetres off the ground with a jacking system, it's quite dramatic.
The house plans have not yet been released to the public, but all those involved in the project say it won't be long before buildings of the future are modelled on this one. Simone Thurtell, NBN News.
Some people wear their heart on their sleeve, but November Chingala wears his on his head. The Zulu warrior headdress, a good luck charm from his grandfather.
Yeah, I'd wear it. every time, maybe sometimes a week before fight. I usually wear it when I'm walking around in town, because it gives me that strength.
But there's a lot more to the former South African than his unusual headpiece. He's currently ranked number 6 in the world. He once was ranked as the number 1 featherweight contender in the IBF, but he couldn't get a crack at the title in his homeland. Australian trainer Brendan Smith realised his potential, bringing Chingala and his family to Australia 12 months ago. A win for the 27-year-old against Mexico's Ericel Nakamendi could set up a shot at the World Crown. But Chingala also wants to become the first winner of the Lance Hobson Memorial Trophy, established after the tragic death of the Newcastle boxer.
They actually boxed together on the same card at the Hordern Pavilion. They never had a chance to get to know each other well, but they did meet there, and November is very proud to be a part of the whole show.
Yeah, I did know about Lance. He was a good bloke.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Today, a challenge to the Prime Minister.
Why, Mr Howard, have you tried to keep the public and the shooters ignorant of the true scope of these regulations?
The gun lobby claims it has leaked documents which show gun owners won't be compensated for arms other than semi-automatics. That's a major concern, as well as the fact farmers are being limited to owning just one rifle and one shotgun.
Why do golfers have all those clubs? You don't tee off with a putter. And each golf club has a legitimate and different use.
There has also been criticism from the gun lobby of an apparent media bias against them. Some members are furious at a Victorian radio station which refuses to play their advertisement, advising gun owners of an upcoming protest rally in Melbourne.
Reporters and TV stations and the people who run them have personal views, and sometimes they get in the way of their professional objectivity.
Gun owners are claiming the legislation preventing freer access to firearms has come about too quickly and without consultation. They'll respond with vigour in the Hunter Valley this weekend, hoping to convince the government the slaying of 35 at Port Arthur was more of a social problem than gun-associated.
He could have caused a similar amount of damage if he'd walked through that shop with a machete.
It was a similar meeting at Cessnock 8 years ago, starting the momentum which toppled the Unsworth government. Robert Ovadia, NBN News.
Each year, the Graduates Careers Council conducts a national survey to determine how students from various universities cope once they hit the workforce. This year's results show Newcastle graduates fare well. In fact, they earn more money on average than students from any other university.
I think that it reflects their value to employers. So employers obviously feel that graduates from Newcastle have skills that they can use and they're marketable.
The survey says University of Newcastle graduates will earn $28,500 in their first year. That's $500 more than all other New South Wales graduates. Helen says job satisfaction can't be judged in monetary terms alone, but she says the survey does give students a positive outlook.
I think that outcomes are very important to students. They come here to get a degree for a reason, and employment's obviously high in their mind. So these sorts of figures we hope will encourage people.
With such a boost to their reputation, the university hopes more school leavers will be attracted to the Hunter to further their education. Simone Thurtell, NBN News.
For 34 years, employers have been paying for apprentices and trainees to study at recognised colleges. It was a battle that took unions a long time to win, and one they're not about to relinquish. Today, they expressed concern about the Coalition's suggestion that study time for trainees qualify as unpaid work.
You're really talking about a 20% cut in wages for an apprentice, which of course will take them down to less than what they would receive if they were on unemployment benefits.
The government believes the move will encourage companies to employ more apprentices, a view supported by the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. They believe with more flexible conditions, employers would be more likely to take trainees on. But the union believes it's the apprentices who will lose out.
They have openly said they will not employ any more apprentices. They just haven't got the facilities.
Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
Organisers of the march were extremely happy with today's turnout, fine weather drawing around 5,000 people, and they were all making plenty of noise, spreading their Christian message.
We love this city, and we feel as a church we have a real responsibility, you know, to take a leadership role in it as well and show people that we love it and we're concerned and enact our faith out in that way too.
Today's rally drew people from a number of different religious denominations, with representatives from 250 of the Hunters parishes. Encouraging to many, quite a few of the marchers were young people.
Young people are prepared to really let the rubber hit the road when it comes to expressing their faith.
The main streets of the city were temporarily closed as the march made its way to the foreshore, where the group continued the celebrations. Simone Thurtell, NBN News. To put it mildly, James Arthur Bates was a bit of a lad. After serving in World War I, he married Mary Jane Gibbs and started a family. But unbeknown to them, he also had a number of other children in several other relationships.
Bit of a shocker, right? And it took 3 years to sort of track the family down that they had together.
Today, for the first time, the whole family got together.
Most of the people were very, very nervous and apprehensive of what's going to happen. Some of them hadn't met anybody before. Some of them met each other when they were very young children.
Once everyone got over their nerves, there was plenty to talk about and lots of gaps in the family tree to fill in. They all agree now they've made contact with each other, they'll never again break their family ties. Simone Thurtell, NBN News.
Since it first opened, the emergency department of the John Hunter Hospital has been in trouble. Poor design has seen it struggle to cope with patient demand. Last year, the department treated 32,000 adults and almost 14,000 children. It's the busiest combined adult and paediatric emergency department in the state. Now, following a $300,000 refurbishment, the emergency department finally has the space and resuscitation bay it's needed for so long.
Previously, we used to have to push other patients out of the way, clear a corner and deal with serious cases in a very confined space.
The new facilities include better access for ambulances, easily accessible equipment and space for large teams of specialists. It also gives patients more privacy.
It's made a lot of difference. We opened just before Easter and it has made life much more pleasant for the staff and a much more efficient way of looking after ill people.
And at the Mater Hospital, renovations began today on a bunker to house a third linear accelerator. The $1.2 million addition will provide treatment for deep-seated cancer and will help reduce the waiting time for patients. It will also ensure treatment is not disrupted when the other two accelerators are serviced.
We always hope that eventually someone will make the major breakthrough and we won't require these machines, but they're the best form of treatment currently, and having these facilities just makes it far better for our staff and for the patients too.
At the same time, the outpatients waiting room is undergoing a facelift. The new one will be bigger and have direct access to the treatment area. The bunker is expected to be fully operational by 1997. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
Mining company CRA is digging in for another battle, inferring productivity cutbacks at their Hunter Valley mines are due to the union movement. It follows an extended fight with the union over the Vickery mine at Gunnedah and the Weipa mine in Queensland.
It seems to me there's always been a confrontations attitude with CRA, which hasn't been with the other companies.
The company says work practices in the Hunter are not good for productivity and that its Hunter Valley No. 1 mine north of Singleton needs to lift its game. This has led to fears that the mine could be closed down. Around 500 workers are employed here at Hunter Valley No. 1. According to the union, the open cut mine should be viable for another 20 years. While the company is talking tough, it says it's not about to shut the mine. Mick Watson from the United Mine Workers says he's been trying to settle an enterprise agreement at Hunter Valley No. 1 for 6 months. He says neighbouring mines have taken on agreements and their productivity has been good.
The enterprise agreement discussions that are now taking place will help to improve the productivity of that mine. Now, we're willing to come up with a collective agreement on that and bargain in good faith. I just hope that the company does the same thing.
Peter Ryan, NBN News.
"42-year-old Graham Hall was found guilty yesterday of attempting to kill his wife in April last year. In sentencing him today in Newcastle Supreme Court, Justice Newman said it was an intense attack which included a bizarre and terrifying series of events. While Jennifer Hall was sleeping, Graham Hall drove a car into the house at Dyer's Crossing near Foster, shot her with a spear gun and hit her about the head with a hammer. She suffered what doctors say were life-threatening injuries. Justice Newman said her memory of this horrendous attack will stay with her for many years to come.
Justice Newman quoted from a psychiatric report which said Graham Hall suffered a mood disorder which made him delusional. At the time he attacked his wife, he falsely believed she was harming the children. Justice Newman believes, however, that with treatment, the severity and intensity of the disorder can be brought under control. In sentencing Graham Hall, he took into account the gravity of the crime and that it was committed while Hall was on bail and had been ordered not to approach the property. He sentenced him to a minimum of 7 years jail. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
It's a salute to Hollywood, and it promises to be as big as Tinseltown itself. Touring next month, Walt Disney's World on Ice is a mammoth entertainment extravaganza. For some lucky children, stars from the performance came to town a little early. A visit from Mickey Mouse delighting St Benedict students at the Hunter Life Education Centre. But there are many more children who'll benefit from the Walt Disney Tour. The centre will receive at least $15,000 from a gala performance.
These sorts of donations go directly to helping children come to our programs.
The Life Education Centre runs preventative drug education programs for children aged 5 to 12. With the government providing only 18% of funding, they rely heavily on donations.
Yes, it's fantastic. It's wonderful news to be able to be the recipient.
The Life Education Centre plans to update its resources with the money. It will also build a mobile classroom to take the programs into local high schools. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
As a priest, Father Vincent Ryan held a position of authority in the community, but over 20 years from 1974 he shattered that trust and 7 young lives. Today he was sentenced to 4 years in protective custody.
I thought it was appropriate for the circumstances. I thought the judge considered all of the material before him quite carefully.
But his victims are outraged.
4 years, as far as I'm concerned, that's a slap in the face from the judicial system to us, the victims.
The boys were abused in the schoolyard, in Ryan's home and in the church after altar boy practice. Father Ryan encouraged them to masturbate and have oral and anal intercourse. One child was abused for 6 years and more than 200 times.
Can't bring their innocence back. They were little boys. It's just heartbreaking, it really is.
And for the families of the later victims, the knowledge that something could have been done. Father Vincent Ryan's behaviour was reported to church authorities back in the 70s, and the acting bishop, Monsignor Paddy Cotter, sent him to Melbourne for counselling. But Father Ryan saw a Catholic psychiatrist only once and spent the rest of the year in Melbourne studying. He then returned to the Hunter and to a new bishop who knew nothing of the abuse and nothing of Father Ryan's attraction to young boys. Monsignor Cotter had told no one, and it was 20 years before Father Ryan's pedophile activities were finally stopped.
There.
As the sounds of the last post echoed out along Newcastle's foreshore, war veterans and their friends and families remembered those who died fighting for their country. Their attention focused not on those who fell on the land, but the merchant seamen who often braved waters infested with enemy submarines.
It's only recently that Veteran Affairs have recognised them, the same as returned servicemen have been recognised. So yes, it's a very belated recognition for merchant seamen.
The Merchant Navy Memorial was built in 1994. Since then, a service has been held once every year at the site. This year, the house flag of the Adelaide Steamship Company was raised in honour of 5 seamen who lost their lives when their ship was torpedoed off Trial Bay on the mid-north coast. As the sun streamed in through the stained glass windows of Newcastle's Sacred Heart Catholic Church, a packed congregation gathered to witness the ordination of Glenn Walsh and Darryl Mackey to the priesthood. In offering words of advice, Bishop Michael Malone said the recent allegations of misconduct surrounding members of the Catholic Church should only challenge Glenn and Darryl to set a good example and rekindle the public's faith in the Church. Emma Ossian, NBN News. The suburban street in Talara in Maitland where the bus crashed today stood in peace and quiet as local children inspected the site of the crash. It was a stark contrast to yesterday's mayhem when the bus carrying 35 children collided with a car before running off the road and slamming into a tree. Amazingly, no one was killed, although some children suffered back and neck injuries while others were treated for shock. An 18-year-old girl believed to be the driver of the car is also now in a satisfactory condition in John Hunter Hospital. Peter Blackmore, State Liberal member for Maitland, says the accident highlighted the serious shortage of paramedics in the region, with ambulances taking nearly 10 minutes to get to the scene that was only about a kilometre away from the local ambulance station.
The first ambulance on the scene was from Beresfield, which is ironic when we consider that less than a kilometre away is our own ambulance station with 6 ambulances in that building, and yet we only had 2 people working and they were attending another job.
Mr Blackmore says the state government needs to look at increasing the number of staff at ambulance stations throughout the region to avoid a potential disaster. Police, meanwhile, are still investigating the cause of the crash. Emma Ossian, NBN News.